Hey, everybody in internet land. My name is Saj Freiberg. I'm with AISH New York, and we have a hopefully a very fascinating and fun discussion for everybody tonight. The title of this is Are We Really One People? A religious, secular, open discussion. So we have a beautiful group of people here tonight to discuss what divides and potentially what joins the Jewish people. The idea for this broadcast was from my colleague, Rabbi Adam Jacobs, and he read an article in the foreword, and that article really talked about how divided Jews are. It was an article that was comparing Israelis and Americans. In our panel tonight, we're going to have all Americans, but the basic idea is that given the political divisions and the deep divisions that exist among the Jewish people in terms of religiosity, can we really consider ourselves one people? And the rather pessimistic conclusion of that article was, we are not one people anymore. We are two communities, and the divide is only going to grow starker in the future. So that's a future that I would like to avoid. But nonetheless, there are divisions, and it seems worthwhile that we should have an open discussion about them. So right now, I'm just going to introduce the members of our panel one by one. This group has never gotten together before. So first of all, I'd like to just invite each person to just say their name, where they're from, and maybe a little bit about their Jewish background, if they would. So first, introducing Esther. No. Esther, are you there? Oh,
I'm here.
Okay, great. Esther, tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, I am a mother, grandmother of 3. I actually go nuts over my grandkids. I was born Chassidic. I work as a coach. I help people, women inspire and empower themselves to gain more mastery in their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. But I love life, and I love Judaism, and I'm passionate about it.
Beautiful.
And what I love doing is playing paddleball in the field when the weather's nice. And when life feels a little heavy, I like flying a kite. What I hate doing is cleaning my house. So what I do about that is hiring cleaning help. So I hire a Spanish cleaning lady. She cleans my house for 4 years and then discover that she's Jewish. We have a conversation.
Wow.
Yes. So we have a conversation. I don't know how much cleaning got done that day, but we are soul sisters. She ended up lighting candles that Friday night, and she's doing that ever since. She has
amazing.
Yeah. So
amazing. I just want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. Thanks for that great story. Curtis Stahl, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, buddy. Where are you from?
I'm from Portland, Oregon, originally. Raised mostly in a secular family. Began exploring, Jewish heritage, my Jewish heritage, and the Jewish religion more so over time. I work in the real estate industry in New York with a lot of religious colleagues and friends. So I've been exposed to a lot of different groups of people and a lot of different sects. So it's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, great. Awesome to have you. Adam Gordon.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Hey, buddy.
Hi, so my name is Adam Gordon. I'm a software developer who lives in Brooklyn, New York, though I'm actually calling in from Memphis, Tennessee tonight. So I was raised in the Reformed Jewish tradition, though I consider myself a secular Jew currently. So I've actually lived in 8 U.S. states, including both coasts. I lived in the South, the Midwest, and Texas. So I have a nice cross-section of the American Jewish experience. And I always enjoy good discussion about politics and Judaism. Also for naming things we hate. I hate flossing. I don't know. Figured I'd throw that out there.
Awesome. The 2 things that nobody's supposed to talk about, we're supposed to talk about tonight, right? Religion and politics. Okay. Okay, should be great. Rachel, are you with us?
Yeah, what's up? I'm
Hey,
Rachel.
Rachel.
How's it going? So I'm Rachel Saslow. I am a product marketing manager. I'm raised in New Jersey in this beautiful childhood bedroom that I'm currently sitting in, but typically live in Manhattan. And I was raised pretty secular and kind of like being a minority in my community of friends. I felt like kind of embarrassed to be Jewish until I graduated college and was able to figure out what being Jewish meant to me. And I had the opportunity to kind of explore Judaism in my own way, which I'm still kind of figuring out right now. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. And we have one couple that's together, a couple of friends, Yoel and Aryeh. You guys could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
There you go. Hi, I'm Aryeh. First of all, that didn't sound too kosher as a couple.
It's kosher, man. Everything's kosher. It's good.
So Aryeh Royd, originally from Manchester, England, and yes, Man United was my team. And I wasn't brought up so Chassidic to begin with. Later on, I got involved. Our family got involved more in the Chassidic lifestyle, and my father sent me to Chassidic yeshiva in Israel. And since then, got married in America. I have a beautiful family, and I'm raising a Chassidic family here in Monsey in New York. And what I like to do best is travel around the country with my friends to share the beauty of Judaism and with the Chassidic flavor to our friends, brothers and sisters all over the country. We go to various communities, we go to college campuses back in the days before COVID when we were allowed to. And we would Shabbatons all over the country, just with, as I said, a Chassidic flavor, singing and dancing throughout Shabbos to show the beauty of our heritage, and that we're all one, as the discussion will be.
Beautiful.
My name is Yerli Trigger. I was born and raised in Monsey, New York, right where I live right now. The best place to live, in my opinion, other than Israel. So I was born and raised Hasidic, and went to local schools, local yeshivas. Professionally, I work in special education. I've worked in regular classrooms, special ed classrooms. Right now, I'm an assistant principal in a local public school. And I guess I share Aryeh's passion for traversing the United States to bringing joy and unity to our fellow brothers and sisters.
Beautiful. Okay, so hold on one second. I'm just checking something. Right now, if we hope to have time at the end for questions from our audience on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook or on our YouTube page, you can post questions there as we go through, and hopefully we'll get to them before the end of the program. The format's going to be like this. I'm going to throw out a question, and I want to give each one of our panel members a moment to answer the question. And then maybe if people have responses back and forth, I'll try to direct a little discussion about it at the end so we can get a little back and forth going. Okay? So here's the first question for our panel this evening. Do you agree that the Jewish people are divided? And if so, why do you think we are divided? What do you think the main divisions are? And what do you think's causing that divide? Okay? We'll do the same order that we did to the beginning last time, but we'll mix it up a little bit. So do you think that we're divided? What do you think, Esther? A minute or so of your thoughts.
We're absolutely not divided. In essence, we're one. We're truly one. Unfortunately, as time and history, some people have dropped their Judaism. So externally, they look different. Spiritually, and they have lost touch with the truth. But we're really one. We're absolutely one.
Wow, that took less than a minute. You got a lot of conviction there and a lot of clarity. Okay, Curtis, what are your thoughts? You can respond to Esther or give your own thoughts, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I would say overall, I'd agree. I think that there are more similarities than differences, and I think that it's always been a diverse community, and I think it will always continue to be. I do think there are two sides and there's polarization, but I'm
Can
also
you expand on that a bit? What do you think the two sides are? Where do you think the polarization is?
I think in Israel, especially, you've seen sort of, it was a country that was founded by, mostly secular, socialist, Ashkenazi Jews. Now, if you go to Israel, there's been a lot of Sephardic immigrants. It's more religious. It's more conservative. That's sort of the milieu there, the cultural ethnos of the country, I'd say, is more right-wing. Whereas in the United States, 90% of the Jews that live here are descended from people who came in the 1920s, mostly looking, in that time period, mostly looking for economic opportunities. They were not the most probably religious segment of Ashkenazi Jews in Europe at that time. So I think you've seen the communities diverge. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, and there's different groups, and people are their own people everywhere in the world. But I think that due to those kind of demographic trends, there are large differences.
So, but you think those differences are more Israeli in America, but you think in America we're more united. You agree with Esther that we're more united than we are divided?
Well, I'd say the caveat is that the non-Orthodox community in the United States is slowly, becoming less large of a community through whether it's, assimilation or intermarriage or whatever it might be, whereas the Orthodox community is obviously having more children, is becoming larger. But at the moment, it's still a very small percentage of the community as a whole, but it's one that I think cannot be ignored anymore. It's one that you cannot simply just be kind of pushed to the side and say, oh, this is not a large contingent of the community, because it is, and it's a growing contingent.
Okay, so maybe some division, Orthodox and non-Orthodox. What do you think, Adam?
Sure. So I would say that, and I don't mean to skip to the end or say anything from, fast forwarding at all. I would say that I could still reconcile the Jewish people in general as a people group. But that being said, I would definitely say we are divided, that there are divisions, particularly political divisions that split different Jewish communities around the world. And you could see that phenomenon both in the United States, within, more religious communities and secular communities in the United States, and then between secular communities in the United States and communities in Israel. And I do think it breaks down politically to a certain degree. So I have heard the anecdote that, or I've heard the saying that, around the rest of the world, people pay attention to two elections typically, their own election and the election in the United States, just because the United States is plays such a force globally as far as, who they elect president, because it has such an effect on global politics. And I think one of the major divisions you see in the Jewish community, and again, not to say it's not reconcilable, but I think it tends to be between Jews who take on a more globalist view of world politics, seeing themselves as world citizens more or less, and trying to interpret the best ways that Jews can live within the global society, and then those who view Jews as trying to partake in an ethnic state, designed for Jews. And I think that's you tend to see political divisions that break down on that level, where the latter would be those in Israel voting more for a Jewish state or an ethnic state.
So that's interesting. That's a pretty serious division. Some Jews seeing people as people. Let's put it that way. People are people, right? Is that a good way of saying what you're saying? And then others are seeing it more as Jewish and non-Jewish, right?
Right. Or seeing Jews, still being able to see Jews as Jews, but seeing every human as a human, and Jews as a subsect of humans.
Right. Okay. Are we divided? What do you say, Rachel?
I do think that I don't want us to be.
We're all nice people here.
Right?
We want to know what you really think, though. What do you really think?
Desire is for all us to obviously be one people, but I do think that Jews are absolutely divided. I think that there has been, especially like in my lifetime, a lot of different layers and types of Judaism that have emerged, and whether that be, you've got secular, reform, conservative, orthodox, whatever it is. There's also these like micro layers in between that I think are starting to, blossom, and people are starting to get a little bit more interpretive with what Judaism means to them. And, when Esther said that, there are some people that have just lost touch with the truth, I feel like my truth might just be different than someone else's truth.
I was waiting to see if somebody would say how they felt about that. Yeah, that was it. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I just think that maybe my truth is different. And to be honest, like this is just coming from my personal experience, but I have had like people that are a little bit more religious than me, maybe Orthodox or Hasidic practicing, have told me that they don't consider me Jewish. They don't consider me Jewish at the caliber that they are at because I don't really commit myself to Judaism as a lifestyle. Judaism is a big part of my life. And it really ebbs and flows, but Judaism is not such a cornerstone and like big part of my life. And so I love to engage in these conversations and have, really hear other people's thoughts and experiences. But I think that it definitely feels a little bit divided when I'm maybe told that I'm not Jewish based on the way that I practice Judaism.
Great. Thank you for expressing that so well. And so Rachel says, look, there is a division, and maybe I don't even feel as if everybody recognizes that I'm Jewish, but there's definitely a division. So what do you say, Aryeh? You say there's Aryeh and then Yoli. You say there's a division, or you say there's not a division?
They're all wrong. There's no division. We all agree in everything.
Okay, so the advantage of being the last is you can have to focus on what everyone said.
Okay, we'll reverse the order the next time. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, Esther, actually, I know Esther personally is a very spiritual lady, and she says, yes, everyone, we're all one. And, on the other end of the spectrum, I'm sorry, I agree to Rachel. I agree that we are divided, but I want to make a distinction, though. I think that we're divided as individuals. Jews, we're not at all divided. That means every single Jew, if one would think about it, that's what Esther meant. We are all one, no matter where you are, how you act, what you keep, what you don't keep. No difference how observant you are, how less observant you are. There's no division, because a Jew is a Jew no matter what. I actually like to say that's why we're called Jewish. Even if you're only Jewish, you're still a Jew. Jews are one, that's for sure. Where we are divided, though, is from an organizational perspective, or from a as we like to label as Orthodox, as conservative, reform. They're absolutely divided, and because it's a fundamental belief. We as Orthodox Jews believe the Torah is God-given, it's divine. If it's given by God, a God by definition is infinite, which means when He created the world and when He wrote the Torah, He knew what's going to happen in 2020, and He wrote the Torah for our days too. It's relevant. And therefore, to say that things have changed and times have changed, and therefore we could reform the Torah, it's something we can never agree on. And I'll absolutely be divided on that, because we're not dividing, heaven forbid, Jews. Dividing, the idea behind it is this Judaism. And we say if it's God-given, nothing's changed. Nothing could change. Because, as I said, the God by definition, always there, always was, and infinite. And therefore, when I look at Jews individually, say, you're my brother, you're my sister, we are all one. There's absolutely nothing that divides us. If you label yourself, you say, oh, I'm a Reformed Jew. You say, oh, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I'm conservative. So those are wildly different, because in my eyes, it's not even Judaism. It's your own religion. If you decide who you are, or some rabbi decides, I think Judaism should be like this. What I say, well, it's not I say Judaism is like this. Let's ask God what Judaism is.
Okay, let me jump in. Let me interrupt you because Rachel wants to respond to something you said. But before she does, I want to give Yoli a chance to say his opinion about division or no division. I think that Aryeh Arya was kind of parsing it, trying to parse it a little bit. Maybe divided, yes, as individuals, as organizations, organizationally, but individuals still united. What do you say, Yoli?
Because I love everyone, and I want to make sure everyone.
I think Arya's taken a dive up the deep end, if you will. I mean, he's really he's taken it to the next level. And I'm just gonna say I don't like the word divide. I think divide is such a strong word, and of course, like Adam said, and like some of the others have mentioned, really as a nation, there's so much that connects us, and there's so little that divides us. But it's I guess it's easier to focus on the divide to some extent, and that's what people tend to do, unfortunately. I think if people were a little bit more open-minded on both sides of the spectrum, perhaps we could have more dialogue. Something like this should be happening a lot more frequently, a lot more often, and hopefully people who really want to learn and people want to engage, we can learn from this. There's tremendous value in everything that we do, and there's tremendous value in meeting and engaging. So I appreciate being part of this. Thank you.
Okay, so what I get from that is afraid to use the word divided. That word is a serious thing to call us a people that are divided. But nonetheless, we do see that there's some kind of tension there. How can we overcome it? Maybe Rachel, you wanted to respond to something Aryeh said, I think.
Yeah, Aryeh. So when you had said that you think that like organizationally and the way that we kind of label ourselves is really what the dividing term is, like, do you see me as much of family? Would you help me as much as you would help a community member that looked or was a part of your like inner insular circle? Because to me, I feel like there's such camaraderie within like my secular world, but there's also such camaraderie within the Orthodox communities. And it's like, do we break those walls beyond just the actual labels of Orthodox, secular, etc.?
Aryeh is being very modest right now. I'm going to jump in and answer for him. Not only would he, but he actually does. He spends the majority of his outreach efforts helping people from all communities.
Rachel, I wouldn't know how to express this well enough, but just get to know us. I would love to. I wouldn't think twice. I wouldn't say, you know what, maybe she's also Jewish. That wouldn't even enter my mind.
Do you think that you're a minority in that?
Exactly the same. It wouldn't make any difference. Because as I said, I don't look at the label. I look at you. And you have such a pure neshama, just like me and everyone else. There's no difference whatsoever. I'll go immediately to be there for you in any area.
Would you say that about the rest of your community too?
Everyone needs to speak for themselves.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, but I do agree. I do agree to the problems of our community. If we want to talk about that, I'm very open about it. There's many problems within our community. We mentioned before traveling grounds, and my colleague Yoli comes with us. It's one of the things we like to do. One of the reasons I do what I do, to break that misconception, to break barriers, to build bridges, break stereotypes. So, granted, many people in my community won't. They may view you as goy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I do agree. But you know what? It's wrong. It's a misconception from your end. It's a misconception from our end too. We shouldn't. It's dead wrong. And from a Torah perspective, one has to see the value and beauty of the neshama, the soul, not the body, and certainly not the organization they belong to. And I'm actively working on that to try and get more firm and Chassidic involved in.
So I want to open this up a little bit, and maybe Esther, you can jump in. I really, first of all, I very much appreciate your frankness, Aryeh, saying, look, you are unique. You're part of the traveling Hasidim. It's part of your whole. You have a whole project of outreach and of reaching out. I thought that was very brave and honest of you to say, look, is it true by everybody? Esther, what would you say? Would you say there's work that needs to be done within the religious community and how the religious community views the secular community? Did that make sense? Did my question make sense, Esther? Can she hear me?
She seems frozen.
Oh, it looks like she's frozen.
Wow.
Oh, we lost her right at that moment.
She may have dropped.
If you allow me to respond just real quick,
Yeah.
I think, Arya spoke about, again, what divides us and how there are people who don't engage in outreach and may perhaps see that divide. In my experience, and again, I'm not that old, but in my experience, there are, just like Aryeh, there are thousands and thousands and maybe tens of thousands of Hasidim that would drop anything to help any Jew anywhere. Many stories come to mind of different instances where there was someone in federal penitentiary and he was up against he was on death row, and he was Jewish, obviously not religious, and there was a lot of background. Tens and tens of thousands of letters were written by the Orthodox Jewish community in trying to help save this person's life who had changed or who they didn't believe, and just because he was Jewish, really there was no other connection there other than the Judaism. And there's so many other stories of the Jewish Orthodox community. I mean, just right now with COVID and the antibodies and the donation of plasma and different, so many different stories that come to mind where the entire Chabad movement, tens of thousands of Jews just moving all over the country to spread the light of Judaism and to really engage with anybody. So there are definitely those who divide, but if we focus on what brings us together, I think there's a tremendous amount of outreach happening on both ends, I think.
Okay, pardon me for jumping in, but and I'm glad that you gave that context for the question. But I want to give, now that Esther's back, I wanted to give her a chance also to answer. Do you think, Esther, that there is work that needs to be done within the more religious Orthodox community and how they view secular people?
Yeah, there sure is a lot of work to do. I try my best from my end to inspire others to see the secular people as one and respect them for who they are and see them as part of you, because as a nation, we're one. I'm only one person and I try to do more, but hopefully I can inspire more and more people. I try to inspire my children and train them into this and seeing people, through love. But as Yoel has shared, that we're out there to help anyone, no matter, what level of observance they are. I actually didn't think of sharing this, but as he's saying there, I'm humbled to share this. But I've been working at an organization called Renewal. They pair up kidney donors and recipients. I'm personally a donor myself. I've been donated a kidney to a woman that's not at my level at all. She's modern Orthodox. And as I worked there for 7.5 years, I've seen real Chassidic people donating to non-affiliated Jews at all. So there are a lot of people that are out there to feel that unity and do something out there for others. But there is a lot of space of, doing more of this and spreading more of this. How we can do that, again, as a coach, I find that, when I've gained an appreciation to every human being and especially Jews, I think someone that doesn't see that, it's because they're not whole with themselves. And therefore, they're just not connecting to others in that way. So when I was able to grow and connect with myself and become at peace with myself and accept myself for the imperfect human being that I am, then I was able to see the others in that same light.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful point. I want to give the question on the other side, and maybe Curtis, you could answer first. Do you think that there's work that needs to be done on the secular side and the way secular people tend to view religious people, and especially maybe Hasidim, people who are what are sometimes labeled ultra-Orthodox?
Yes, I very strongly think there is. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the so-called ultra-Orthodox and Hasidic, Haredi, Orthodox Jews as a whole. And I think it's a shame, because I think so many secular Jews just don't even know and maybe have never met someone who is an Orthodox Jew. And so I think that I do think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm not exactly sure the structure of that. but I think I do think so. Yes.
Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are similar in the sense that I think just stopping otherizing, in the sense of I think trying to humanize the groups that we're curious about, people that we're curious about, we may not know as well as we'd like to. It's very easy to draw a caricature of somebody or a conception of somebody and then base judgments based on that. I think that's always a bad practice. I think that's going to lead people into either echo chambers or leading them into just a path of thought that diverges from reality as they go. I think it's always important to try to engage as much as you can with real people. I living in New York, it's actually very easy for me to reach out to the Hasidic community. I work in Williamsburg. I think the more, I would say withhold judgment until you've actually had the chance to interact with real people, because I think that prevents a situation where you start to form judgments about an idea as opposed to an actual community of real human beings.
Rachel?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what the two guys said. I mean, I think that there's absolutely work that we can do with this whole like generalization, of a different sect of Judaism. There are so many stereotypes that are portrayed in TV and from one-off stories that you'll hear from somebody that that might be close to you. But you also see so much diversity within this call of people that, are really interested in getting to know us on many different levels, regardless of how Jewish you are. But I feel like a lot of times in social situations, it's like, who's gonna put the olive branch out first? Like, who's gonna put their hand out for the other one first? And there's a little bit of this like, do you think that we're on the same page? Like, are we one person? Like, trying to like feel out somebody who might look a little bit different than you, to feel out if they truly respect you on the same level as you want to be respected, and just trying to figure out and navigating those sort of stereotypes that might be like very deeply ingrained in each of us.
So I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, my family's pretty diverse. I'm Orthodox, and both of my brothers are not, and I'm really trying to think. There aren't that many circumstances in which really religious and really non-religious people actually interact, right? It doesn't actually happen that much. It's happening in this conversation, right? And the traveling Chassidim are making an effort, and Esther is also doing some outreach, and all the three of you also seem to be exploring these things. But let's think for a second, how do we bridge this gap? Because it does seem that there is a gap there, right? And I throw it out to you guys, and since we're in this format, I think anybody can speak up at any time. What can we practically do to destroy these stereotypes and to really get together more?
I mean, I think one thing is certainly communal organizations could be more integrated. In a lot of communities, you tend to have like a Jewish federation, which may not incorporate some Orthodox, contingencies, and they may operate by themselves. In like a smaller community, like where I'm from in Portland, Oregon, I think there is more interaction. So whether it's on that communal level, I definitely think that there's ways that it could be done. Whether it's it's a fine line, but I do think there's opportunities for interaction.
Any other thoughts?
I also think like education, I want to learn more. I want to understand more. I don't want to be in my secular bubble. I want to understand where you guys are coming from and how you think of me, and like continuing to have not only conversations like this, but also exposure, and really like that desire to want to educate yourself about the full spectrum of Judaism and people that are other than you within your own religion.
Rachel, would you say that you're unique in that way among your peer group? That you're more interested than most?
I think so, but I also think that maybe the access to resources, to communities where you're not like the only secular person in a room of Orthodox Jews, like that doesn't really exist. So I think that the platforms in which we integrate and can learn from each other without, picking up a book or doing the deep Google search, like
right.
It needs to be a little bit more human than that. And obviously there's so much of a spectrum even, right here.
Right.
So I wanted to add, first of all, Adam, I loved your terminology of otherwise, which I like that a lot. Rachel mentioned who's going to extend the olive branch first. So, as we've been saying the whole time, we're trying to extend the olive branch. Maybe I think, if I may throw it back to you, Rabbi, large organizations such as AISH need to make it aware that we are willing to extend the olive branch. That means, in my eyes, the secular world should simply know that we are available, ready, willing, and able to extend that olive branch. I'm just waiting for the people to know that. As soon as anyone is interested, we'll be there. So we're trying to get the word out there more, and you wanted to know how can we do this more? People just don't know that from both ends. As Rachel said, I don't think you're the only one, Rachel. I've met many people throughout the States, and many, many people out there who so want to connect to people from the other end of the spectrum. Unfortunately, people are just unaware that from both ends, we so desperately want to connect. We have this yearning to connect to each other. And if the large organizations such as AISH and others would put it out there, I'm just giving you a suggestion, I'm giving you more work. And please, by all means, let each other know things are happening.
I think also.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
I just wanted to add, I think, to something that Rachel said before in regards to the olive branch also. I think there's another piece that weighs heavily on this discussion, and it's the perception of, and I'm sorry for it sounds like you had a very bad experience, and I apologize. Whoever said anything to you did not speak on my behalf. I can assure you at least that much. But there's a cultural, maybe, communication gap when it comes to Hasidim interacting with people, and I think that gets in the way. It's almost like a certain off-puttedness that people are feeling that simply isn't there, but in the way that the language is built, the way Yiddish is built in some sense, and the way there are some cultural differences that can seem very off-putting at first. I know that the school that I work for is a public school, and it's a special needs school, and we have many non-Jewish people, many secular people, and a lot of Hasidim working there too. It's a bilingual Yiddish school, so we have peoples of all different, all makes and models, if you will, people coming from all over the place. And a lot of people have expressed to me that when they came to the school, they were very scared, or they felt like perhaps like you felt, which is very different. And there's a lot of Hasidim, and will I be accepted? Will I not be accepted? But you can be sure that it's very much the same on the other side of the spectrum. People are also very scared of, am I going to be accepted by people who are more regular in the world, if you will, and I'm very different. I mean, I'm having a bad pious day, so just people are having different struggles that people have, and it's sometimes it's just that cultural difference.
And the language problem will mean those people who don't know what payas are not going to get the joke.
I'm sorry.
I got it. We got it.
We do a Shabbaton on a college campus. It's actually one of the first Shabbatons we went to. We've learned over the time, what mistakes not to make. The first time we went to one of our first Shabbatons over 10 years ago. We were in Albany, on the university, on the campus. And you may know how Hasidim dress on Shabbos without that. dead cat on our head, the fur hat, strangle and a long black cloak. And we imagine how we felt on the college campus Friday night, and even more so, we picked the wrong Greek. It was Halloween weekend. We certainly won the contest that year.
Let me ask the question this way: is there something that you really admire or respect about the other group? About the if you're on the more religious side, so there's something that you respect or can admire that you see among secular Jews that you don't necessarily see as much among your own group? And is there something, if you're on the more secular side, is there something that you see among religious Jews that you admire or respect very much? Feel free to answer in any order.
Absolutely.
So what is it?
Look, there's a tremendous amount to be admired about any person you meet. I think one of the core concepts of Judaism is judging others favorably and seeing everyone for who they are and understanding that they have, like I'm going to go with what I started with, which is there's so much that connects us and so little that divides us, but we tend to focus on that divide. There's so much that we can learn from each other if we were to extend that olive branch.
But Yoli, I want to ask: is there something that you see, a quality that you see among secular Jews that you admire? That you might feel that your group lacks.
Yes, I do.
He goes first.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
Totally secular, like in no connection at all, totally unaffiliated. But, Orthodox Jews who are born Orthodox and their entire life is Orthodox. Sometimes we take for granted our mitzvot, our Shabbat, our prayers. It's just life. You wake up in the morning, you go to shul, you put on the tefillin, the phylacteries, you keep Shabbat, because this is life. When I see, as I said, not totally unaffiliated people, but people who are slowly growing in their Judaism, or there's some Jews who don't do much, only 1 or 2 mitzvot. When they do that, they're all in it. And they say, this is real, I'm connecting now to God. Now's prayer time. And so many times it's something we could forget. We just go to shul. We do the davening. We do the morning prayers instead of like, I'm actively going now to shul to daven. And I see that. I see the sincerity in people who are less affiliated. And they go out of their own will because now they want to connect to God versus something we do out of rote.
Okay, cool. Wonderful.
I really I admire the discipline and dedication that more religious folk have to the Jewish religion. Like, it is such a big part of your day to day, from how you dress to how you spend your weekends to who you're spending your time with to what you're eating to, it's really, it takes for a lot of mindfulness, I think, and a lot of intentionality. And I really respect and admire that.
I appreciate that.
Whoa, I just heard some screaming.
Well, yeah,
Can you guys
I
hear
don't
me?
know
that voice too.
I don't know what that was.
Oh, well, anyway.
I can
had
chime
another
in.
thing
I
I
can
wanted
kind
to add.
We're having some
Sorry,
internet
go for it.
connectivity issues. We Hasidim, we don't go for the internet.
And yet here you are. So you must have snuck into some secret place that you can go on the internet. Okay.
I just had one more thing to add.
Yeah, please.
Also, just I think the deep community that you all have within each other, and it's really special. And maybe I don't feel it yet from my Orthodox friends and my Orthodox Jews that I surround myself with yet. Though I would say that I just see such a camaraderie and like this willingness to always help each other out and to always put each other first, and like to really think of others within your community as a part of yourself. And I really, really admire that. Coming from a secular community, I have a lot of different pockets of communities, but it's very fleeting. It's very fickle. People move around a lot. We're in, we're out, we're feeling more Jewish this week, we're feeling less Jewish this week, and there's this consistency and this really dedication to community that I really admire.
Yeah, I would kind of second what Rachel said, in that I have a lot of respect for tradition, especially tradition in, a decided tradition that's being practiced when the people practicing it are in the minority. Because I think in the world that we live in, it's very easy, the modern kind of secular world, it's very easy to get distracted. I think every decade, I think it gets more and more difficult to cling to a core identity. I think it's easier to kind of join the general population, or to kind of, do what you can to fit in. So I have a lot of intrinsic respect for a community that is willing to, stay the course more or less, or that's willing to uphold parts of their life that are important to them. There might be some things that I might not personally do, but I have a lot of intrinsic respect for people who are willing to, who are decided in saying who they are, and we're willing to stick through that, even if it's not necessarily easy. Or if they might be a minority in a certain community.
Mm-hmm. Esther, you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I think I appreciate what Rabbi Royd mentioned about their excitement to every mitzvah that they do. For myself, I think as I was growing, I did realize that void that I did everything by rote, and I said, it's like as if I'm becoming affiliated. I was doing everything just like whatever I was taught, and gaining that appreciation of like just watching the people that like are so new at it and they're like excited about it. I did my own research on why I'm doing certain things. So many things we do, we have no clue why we do it. I teach my kids to do some things. I can't even explain the stuff behind it because it's not on their level. We just teach them to do it. And as they get older and they can understand more, they gain appreciation to it. But many things you need to do research on your own. So that's what I was trying to do, and I'm still doing, to find more passion in what I'm doing today and appreciating my Judaism. But in general, I haven't analyzed the secular culture so much to say there's something specific that I admire, but I admire them as a people.
I would say, it's funny. I just wanted to put in my own thing here, having some, and as somebody who sort of lived in both worlds in my life, I grew up more basically Reform, basically secular, and then later in my life became more observant. I once had a friend who said, there are a lot of universalist aspects to Judaism, a vision of the whole world, a vision of, if you look in the prophets, a vision of world peace, a vision of really everybody coming together in the entire planet. And I find that universalist perspective, or that that desire to connect to the entire world, that I find that much more among my secular friends, and then among my Jewish friends, there's much more of a focus on being Jewish, being a strong Jew, being a good Jew, my relationship with Hashem, my relationship with my fellow Jews. And so in a way, I feel like the two communities have a lot to offer each other. I think that the more religious community obviously has a strength and an understanding about identity. But on the other hand, I feel like the secular community has this attachment and vision of the whole world as one big family, right? That I think is also part of Judaism, but doesn't get expressed as often in the religious community. I just wanted to throw out my own thing. We have some questions from Facebook. Let's see what they are. Okay, what are the secular participants doing to reach out? The expectations feel one-sided. I don't know if I would agree with that, but it's a good question. What do you guys feel you can do to reach out more?
I would say, admittedly, I haven't done very much in recent times, especially considering I live in a part of the country, I think probably the part of the country where it's the easiest to explore some of these communities of religious Jews and of Hasidic Jews. In the past, I have visited Chabad a lot of times, actually, when I was just looking for a Jewish community. So something that's kind of funny about my story is I bounce around the country. I've lived on both coasts. I've lived in the Midwest. I've lived in the South. So I have explored Jewish communities all around the country. Some of them were very large. Some of them were very small. They took all kinds of different shapes and sizes. And in some areas, there was really only a Chabad to visit, or maybe there was not a Reform community to visit readily. And the times I've done it, I have found it to be enriching. Again, in those situations, those may not have been practices that I would take on in my everyday life or practice in my everyday Judaism. But I did find that it was great. It did provide great perspective in terms of, seeing what some of these services were like, or some of these experiences were like for people in those communities. So I would say, at least for things to do to reach out. I know COVID makes this really difficult now, but if you live in an area where, if you're a secular Jew and you are curious, and you live in an area where it's readily available to go to either a service or a Shabbat, or explore some of these communities.
You're saying you got to look for opportunities to connect with the people.
Right, who are different. Exactly. Because I do believe they're out there.
It's also a very delicate line, because it's you don't want to be maybe intrusive to a really tight-knit communal experience, and you don't want to be an onlooker and an observer. You want to find a way to really integrate, and sometimes those opportunities don't feel as readily available for, I think, either side of the spectrum. But I come with an open mind. I come onto a panel like this to explore and engage in conversation with people that are more religious than I am. And I hope to continue that conversation and get involved with some of your Shabbatones. And who knows, I think that a lot of this conversation can unlock some of those opportunities, but I don't have a closed-mindedness to not reach out. I think those opportunities need to be kind of, what was mentioned before, almost facilitated by organizations at a bigger level to kind of bring us all together like this.
Well, we definitely should see in the chat some email exchanges here, because we gotta make sure that happens.
If I may ask something to Adam and Rachel, that you talk about from your own individual, that sometimes you go there, sometimes you go here, and it's nice to join a Shabbaton. But what you could do, because you live in the city, is you could arrange a group of your friends in your house, your place, and invite us. So it's not just about you spending a service at the Chabad house or Shabbat meal. Get your friends together to do an event.
I think we have a pitch here. I think the traveling Chassidim want to come to hang out with you and your friends, Rachel. So, okay.
Curtis, I'll come to Portland, Oregon.
Curtis, you want to respond to that question?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the delicate line there is that the Orthodox services are something that secular Jews can participate in, but non-Orthodox services are not something that Orthodox Jews are going to participate in. So you have to think about, okay, where are the areas where there can be, commonality, and, both sides can, interact with each other. And so whether, it's making an effort to, go make friends, go to each other's houses, go to Shabbat dinners together, or even in business. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can make it incumbent upon ourselves to reach out and not just be expecting their open spaces to participate in. But I think those are also great opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think that what's coming out, I like the question, because what it just brought out is that we all, if we really do believe in Jewish unity, we all have a responsibility to really try to bridge that gap any way we can. There was another good question on Facebook. Is that right, producer? Is there another good? Tikkun Olam is nice, but doesn't it require observance first? So I guess we should first explain that Tikkun Olam is the idea that a Jew should work to make the world a better place, the world as a whole a better place. David is asking, shouldn't observance come first? That's an
I would ask
interesting question.
David, why would he think that it would require observance first? And if making the world a better place requires observance first, then those who are not observant are exempt from making the world a better place. I don't agree with that.
I
I guess I would also.
I think there's a very there's the word observance. Define observance really. I mean, there are many different levels of observance, obviously, and I don't know about you guys, but I shouldn't say I'm perfect, but I don't know if everyone else is. No one's perfect. That's the bottom line. If we would be perfect, we wouldn't be in this world. We're in this world to become better people and to grow and to constantly grow. And as long as everyone's in an upward trajectory, I think that it's really difficult to say that someone is observant or not observant. It's a very I don't like the word.
I actually have the exact same interpretation, which is, I mean, to some extent, I guess it feels more or less like gatekeeping as far as like, okay, so what interpretation do I have to meet? What field goal do I have to pass to count as observant enough to want to now qualify to change the world and improve the world around me? So I would say unconditionally trying to improve the world around me when possible, when I can, without meeting somebody else's standards of being observant. To me, that's a core aspect of Judaism, is that I can kind of define my own Judaism that way, and that I wouldn't, I think once you make observance a prerequisite, you have to ask who is the ultimate determinant of that, who decides who's observant and who's not.
Okay, I wanted to say I agree with the three sentiments that were just expressed. My feeling also is that I'm not sure which comes first. Or even if Tikkun Olam isn't part of observance itself, the engagement in fixing the world, if a person does that with the idea that I'm a Jew and I want to contribute, that's part of being Jewish. So I would see it that way too. Okay, our producer's telling us that he's got a great question that we can end with for Esther.
How did the Spanish cleaning lady find out she was Jewish? Okay. Okay, so she's been my cleaning lady for about 4 or 5 years. She speaks Spanish and I speak English. So we kind of communicate hands and feet. But earlier she was trying to tell me about the candles she was seeing. I was preparing the candles on Thursday afternoon. I was preparing my Shabbos table and she said that her mother used to like candles, but I wasn't clear. Something was like, a few things she was telling me about that she thinks that things remind her of her grandparents' house, but it really wasn't clear and nothing really like clicked in my brain that she really is Jewish. Thank you to Corona. Her twin daughters, 14-year-olds, were home from school for many months, so she brought her longer girls to my house when she came to clean. So they speak a nice English. And, as they're around my house, I see them like getting stuck with some of my kids' books and they see a picture of the hotel, the Western Wall. And she shows it to me and she's like, I think I know what that is. It's about the temple and the people pray there. And then she sounded so interested. And then she was helping me prepare the Shabbos table. And I asked her, do you think you're Jewish? And she's like, I don't know. And then I just invited her mother to come into the dining room and we spoke for a long time. She was sharing so many amazing things, different things that she remembers from her grandparents. Her mother didn't keep anything anymore. They came from a very dysfunctional home, but she remembers her grandparents' home. And I asked her, her name is Berta. So I put my hands on my eyes and I said, do you remember any prayer like that? She was like, yeah, my grandfather would tell me to put my hands on my eyes and it would take so long. So I would like peek out. And she was like almost in tears when I kept on asking her questions about it. She said they had separate pots for the meat and dairy and like so many different things. And I said, you're Jewish. And we hugged and cried. And that's it. That was the beginning of. And the kids, I invite them. Actually, on Sunday, we're having a whole kumzitz and we're getting together. I'm going to play music and do challah baking together. They come to me often to bake challah, and they're so proud that they can braid their challah from 6 strands. And they say Shema every night. Their mother lights candles every Friday night. They do not touch their phones the entire Shabbos. I am so inspired by their.
It's a beautiful. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Esther. I mean, we could listen more, but we gotta sign off. So I want to wrap up by saying the following thing. I think that in this discussion we realize that there actually is a divide, and there is the potential for that divide to get worse, the way that article in the foreword talked about, and that it really is up to us as individual Jews to figure out how to bridge that divide and to look for opportunities to bridge that divide. And I think as we see the world becoming a more dangerous place for the Jewish people, we see anti-Semitism on the rise. We see politics getting more and more divisive, and there's more otherizing going on. The crucial nature of any opportunity to reach out to your fellow Jew, whether they're different than you, whether they're same to you, we should take advantage of. I want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, all of our participants. It was a really enjoyable, fun, open, honest, and off-the-cuff discussion. And thank you, everybody, for joining Thursday Night Live. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.